Hey everyone, I'm glad to see you guys here checking out this video, and hopefully that means you've seen the channel. This is a new channel and something that I've wanted to do for a while and I've had some requests to do, and the gist of this channel will be for the purposes of expanding everybody's audio knowledge. I want to just really get into, you saw the name of this video was Session Setup for Pro Tools. That is what this video is, but this is my first video, so I do want to cover a couple of things before I get into it. The purpose of this channel is going to be to share as much knowledge as I'm able to and as I'm able to find, so that everybody can find the answers to their questions. I know that personally I will be looking for information that I'll need, and a lot of times I go to YouTube because it's just a lot easier to see somebody do it versus read about it. And a lot of times I'll run into a situation where there's something that's so specific that somebody hasn't covered it because they've not ran into it, or there is something that, you know, somebody can show me how to do it in Pro Tools, but maybe they can't show me how to do it in a different software. I'm not saying I can show everybody how to do everything in every software, but I do use Pro Tools, and I also use Studio One. So Studio One is much lesser used and known than Pro Tools, so it gives me an option for those of you who are getting into that new software for me to explain some of the more advanced things that it can do, similar to the Pro Tools and Logics and so on and so forth. So this is just again a channel where people can send in, or you guys specifically, or anybody you know can send in questions or comments about things you'd like me to talk about and discuss. Another big thing about this channel that I really want to stress, I do want to avoid this channel being a hey, I need to do this one thing, how do I do it kind of thing, and just show me that and that'd be the end of the video. I believe that when you are learning something, not only should you learn how to do that thing or how to solve that situation, but you should learn the concepts and the theory behind why you did what you did to solve that thing, or to get to the end point in which you got to that you were satisfied with. And when you understand that theory and that concept, any other time you end up in a situation like that, or a situation that's partially similar to it, you will have an idea of how to handle it versus feeling as though it seems very foreign to you, even though it might be somewhat similar, because as opposed to learning that one fix or that one technique, you've learned, oh, this was the thought process as to how we ended up at this technique, and that can help you probably, or hopefully help you end up at different techniques and help build your skill set as an engineer or a recording engineer or a producer or an artist, etc., who is doing anything as far as the technical behind the scenes of what it is we do to create great music or podcasts or television shows, etc. Okay. So with that being said, the strength of this channel is definitely going to be on the topics that we discuss, and how relatable they are for people that want to or that need to learn these things. And so I'm really going to I will obviously create my own content and my own videos based off of topics that I can formulate myself, but I really want you guys to get into leaving comments or even emailing me just directly what it is that you would like me to make a video on. And that way I can start answering direct questions that you guys have, and discussing direct topics that may be hindering you guys from moving forward. I am a one-man operation, so I do want to throw that disclaimer out that although I may not be able to get out a response as fast as I would like to and as you'd like me to, I would definitely do my very best to make sure that I hit every topic. And if maybe I go too long without responding to yours, please feel free to remind me, let me know, like, hey, I asked about this and it's not there yet, and I will definitely make sure I get around to that. Again, ask anything. I want to also stress, and then I'll be quiet and get into the actual purpose of this tutorial. I do want to keep people also from thinking that this is just specific to the studio. A really quick background on myself, or as what I do now. I am a recording and mixing engineer. I have got my own home studio. I also work out of a studio in Austin called Mesa Recording Studios. And I'm also the primary recording and mixing engineer for the Difference Media Studios at Cornerstone Church here in San Antonio. And also through that, I work on obviously a lot of music, also a lot of podcasts, do a lot of post-production for broadcast elements and so on and so forth. Along with that, I also do a number of installs for audio DSP and distribution systems, primarily using QSYS by QSC or Audio Architect with BSS SoundWeb. And I also, at Cornerstone and at a number of other churches, run monitors or front of house mixing. So again, I want to make myself available to everybody who has an audio question in general across the board. I will do my very best to help get those questions answered for you. And if there's something I don't know, I will make sure I talk to somebody who knows it, or I will do that research myself to find out, and then we both learn something. And that will be the way this channel can really be the best use of internet space, if you will. With that being said, I want to just really do a quick tutorial on session setup. This is particularly in Pro Tools. I'll do another video that will obviously be much shorter without all this other blabbering I just did. But another video related to session setup in Studio One. That one will also be shorter because, again, a lot of the concepts will be the same as to what I'm doing. I'll just show you some different workflow techniques as to how to get that quickly set up. What you'll notice is I've got a template here. I'm in Pro Tools. I'm in 12.5 again, just for anybody wondering, native. And I run most of my sessions at 48 kilohertz. The only time I'll ever change that is if I specifically need to for something that somebody is sending me, or unless somebody specifically asked me to record at a higher sample rate. And the only time I've ever had that happen is when it relates to high quality distribution. So the 9624 files, WAV files that they can put on Tidal or Apple Music Pro, I think, or iTunes Pro. I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly which one it was. But usually I'll record at 48, and my template is set at 32-bit float, which I normally run at, and I might have a video on exactly what that means, but I'll skip over that for the time being. I'll either run at 32-bit float or at 24-bit. For this example, I'll just stay at 24, and then I keep interleaved check, and what interleave does is it lets Pro Tools automatically combine two mono tracks that it can tell are like tracks. So what that means is, let's say I record, or somebody sends me a session files and they've got an overhead left, right, and a keys left, right, an organ left, right, and strings left, right, whatever it is. Pro Tools will automatically combine those files to a stereo file, versus if I deselect interleaved, it will import them as two mono files, and I'll have to manually do my panning and so on and so forth. So I'll leave interleave going, and then obviously down here I can choose my location for where I'm going to save that. I always do prompt because I want to make sure that I keep organization is the biggest key in being an engineer, or being anybody that works with any files, really. We want to make sure that we always know where to find stuff. It's quick to get to, it's easy to access. One, for speed, but also two, if we need to go look for files, we have a general idea of where those files are probably going to be, because losing session files or media files for your sessions will make you want to pull your hair out as you try to go look for them and pray that you did not delete them. So my prompt, I choose prompt for location, so I always select where it goes. You could always set a set location for more of you artists who are just recording yourselves. It might be a one place where you save everything. For myself, with all the recording and engineering I do for different artists, I've got a drive specifically set up for sessions I'm currently working on, and I've got all my client names here, but I will save this in a specific folder for what it is we are doing. Let me call this -2. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open a session that I've already worked on, and that way I can kind of explain myself with you seeing actual tracks and stuff. Again, we're going to ignore the overall gist of what you see with all the plugins and stuff like that, because this is more so just an idea of organization. Now, this is a fairly small session. I think total of tracks with all my buses and stuff and a master comes out to 40 tracks. Very simple. This was a country song that we cut for a Sunday morning pre-recording playback for this whole coronavirus thing for Cornerstone. So the first thing that you'll notice when you populate the session, or when the sessions opens up, the easiest thing to be able to start identifying that things are different is obviously my color coding, okay? And I'll turn off all this automation so that you're able to see specifically all of the tracks and all of their colors and how they might correlate. And There is no right or wrong as to what color is what. The only thing I would extremely suggest is that all of your colors, all of your instruments in a particular group of instruments are all the same color. Now, what that color is obviously up to you. For me personally, I use this color of blue for the drums. I use purple for the bass. I use greens for guitars, and you'll notice that there are different shades of green here. Acoustics are usually almost always clean recorded for the stuff I work on, so my acoustics are a lighter green, whereas my electric guitars or anything that gets more dirty start to get the darker greens. You can see this steel guitar here was just a little different than both of those, so it's just a different shade of green, but that way I can quickly identify there's three different types of guitars here. As I get farther down, I've got some VCAs here, which I keep red. And then farther down that, I've got some keys. So I've got a piano here, and then I've got a B3, and I've got those a light blue. And then my lead vocal I've got as a orange. Okay, and then if I had some background vocals like doubles or something, that might be a darker orange. And then if I get into harmonies, I'll start playing around with sky blues and stuff like that. But again, everything that is like shares a color. Okay. And that could be, again, it could be whatever color you want. I think the biggest practice is that it's the same color across the board. So if I'm setting up a mixing console, whether it be an analog old SSL like we use up at the studio in Austin, or if I'm mixing live and I'm using some digital consoles with colorable scribble strips, I'm keeping these same colors no matter where I go, because as long as I'm looking at a session that I've created, I can very quickly get to and from where I need to be without having to think too hard about what it is I'm looking at, right? Even naming wise, it's very good to name your tracks, but in the event that your tracks aren't named, if you're in that much of a rush and it takes too long to name your tracks, you can at least have a general idea of what kind of instruments you're looking at, as long as you always use the same color scheme. With that being said, if you can name your tracks, please name your tracks, and always name them something that's fairly easy to understand. You can see here I've got my tracks named pretty straightforward. We use the first take on most of these, so you can see the .01 is what that's representing. Here I have a kick, which my original kick I replaced with a sample, so I want to make sure I name that sample so I understand that. And if I ever need to get back to my live kick, I've got that live kick, kick in, kick out, not named as sample. That way I know it was my live kick. You can see that I've got a rim shot, my hi-hats, rack toms, 4-tom shakers. There's not much here that's not very easy to understand what it is. You can see with my acoustic guitars, I've even got microphone names on them of what I used. And we double mic this with a U87 and a 184. Another thing I would really recommend is using the comments. I don't believe I actually used the comments too much on this song. But normally I would have put the microphone choice I used, the preamp I used and stuff in the comments. That way if I need to come back and overdub, that I would know that that's there. It's also a really good practice. So obviously, again, I can't stress it enough, color coding. You'll see that I got all my effects color coded a color of blue. My print track and mix bus, I've got a light blue. My music bus, I've got saved as a yellow. And then all of my buses for my instruments, keys bus, guitar bus, bass bus, so on and so forth, is the generic Pro Tools diarrhea green, if you will, for aux tracks. Okay, another thing for organization, when you're able to, put markers in your songs, okay? You know, the biggest thing that these are useful for is just knowing where you are. But once again, you can start using these to jump around the song, right? So if I need to quickly get to my verse 1, this is marker number 5. I can hit my shortcut for jumping to my markers, which is on the number pad of your keyboard, period, the number of the marker, and then period again. So for example, that verse 1 is marker number 5. I can do period 5 period, and it takes me right back to that marker, so I can quickly jump around. But even if I don't want to use that, I can at least just zoom out and see where it is I want to get to. And I probably could even done a better job putting more markers on this song, but the more the merrier. A quick tip that I would suggest for anybody putting markers, you don't always put a marker, place them in the order of which they're going to get used. For example, I've got my first marker here, a second one here, and then this is in theory my third marker, but it's marker number 5. Okay. In the event that that happens, what I normally do is I will put the marker number dash, and I actually ran out of space here, so let's just suggest I do this. Marker number dash, and then what it is, or whatever the part of the song that is. And that way I can look at the first number in all of my marker names. See, this is marker number 6. And I can quickly know, all right, I want to jump to my chorus. That's number 6, period, space 6, or period 6, period, and I'm right back to my chorus. Okay. For those of you who don't know how to put markers, it is the enter button on the numpad side of your keyboard. Okay, you just hit that once and you can fill in this information, then press it again and it will place it. To get rid of that, you just drag up to where it becomes a trash can and hit that. If you've got one of the smaller keyboards, or if you're on a laptop that doesn't have the extended keyboard with the numpad system, you can come here to this markers tab and hit plus to add a marker where your cursor is. If you don't see markers over here, up here in the top left, you've got this drop down and you can come down and select markers to show that timeline. Okay. For those of you who do use markers and don't know how to get these colors, because I know it took me a long time to figure out how to get that, you want to go to setup, you want to go to preferences, and up here in color coding, you will see always display marker colors. Okay. Another quick thing in that color coding section, for a lot of you, if you don't know how this works, your sessions will probably look like this, or maybe not like this, but the general default Pro Tools color coding for clips looks something like, I'll say that. So all your tracks look like this color. And you might change your track color, but the clips themselves still look like this color. The way that I have mine set up is that my clips themselves follow the track color, and to do that, I go to Setup, Preferences, Default Clip Color Coding follows track color. And I'm gonna select that and I'll press OK. And then all of my tracks will go back to those colors. These ones aren't at the moment because I manually chose a different color for them. But just so you know, that's how you get back to that point, okay? And I'm gonna close and reopen my session so that I can get those colors back. Okay, and I'm right back. And really that's the gist of it as far as like basic organizational steps. Those are the two biggest things I see all the time is lack of color coding, lack of solid naming, and then no markers. So it's very difficult to navigate your session quickly. Another thing that's it should become second nature to you, and if it's not, let's start now. But making sure you set your tempo before you start with what it is you're doing. This is a very simple song, so the tempo is at 90 and we cut it at 90 and therefore it's always at 90. Sometimes you might get a session and you have to spend some time trying to go through and figure out what the tempo is. I use a program called Mixmeister BPM. I want to say it's $2. I don't exactly remember how expensive it is, but it's very cheap. You just go to Mixmeister BPM Analyzer, download it. I think it's like $2, and you just grab really any file that you would know has any sort of rhythm in it. So if I've received multi-tracks, I might grab the kick drum and toss it in here, and it will give me a ballpark BPM that's generally pretty close. You know, if it's 142, it might say 141.98. I know that means it's 142. I'll type that in and I can get a pretty good idea of what my tempo is going to be. This is very important for organizational purposes and for editing and workflow purposes, because when you start going in here to make cuts and to fly over hooks and choruses and stuff and copy things, you want to be able to know that when I grab a grid selection of a section, right, this is my chorus section, I want to know that I am grabbing on the downbeat and ending at the end of that piece, and when I drag it over, it's going to fit directly in tempo wise the same way. Obviously with live music you might have to do a little bit of editing to make it fit in rhythmically without hearing any weird flams or anything like that. But again, versus if I don't have the tempo set and I choose slip mode and I try and go in here and manually grab the right amount, there's a higher chance I'm going to end up with a little bit less accurate copy and paste or flyover or however you want to call it. So again, another thing I see a lot of times is people just throw the song in the session and start recording. And really want to make sure you get your tempos and stuff set, because that will affect your editing, but it also affects the way your effects work. If you've got delays that are following quarter notes or eighth note times, that's all indicative of or based off what your tempo is in your session. So again, another organizational tip. Aside from that, we could really get into the nitty gritty of some more extreme organization stuff, but I'll save that for other videos. This video is getting a little bit long already, and I want to make sure that I don't bore you guys with too many 25-minute videos. So again, subscribe, tell your other engineer friends or even those who want to get into it about this, and again, start sending questions and topics and suggestions of what you want done. Another thing too, guys, this is my first time really getting into the this is my first time getting into the video making game, so this is all a learning process for me and myself as far as how to create videos, and hopefully I don't ramble too much, or hopefully, you know, I'm not making the video seem useless by not attacking the exact thing. So a big thing that'll really help me is critique. And I am not a sensitive person, so if you want to say something very mean about me to get your point across, I'm all for it. This is just the way that I can help you guys, and you can help me, and we can help each other, and we can all grow together. So again, send me suggestions, send me critiques, and together we'll try and make this thing into something that's useful to all of us, okay? Thanks you guys for stopping by, and just be on the lookout for the next video. I appreciate it.
Back against the wall, tears running like they heard the sirens from the law. Gears in my head turning like the fucking tables. Know the stories that I share with y'all are never fables. Truly I hope I'm able to paint my picture 4K. Lord, I went the wrong way, but ain't no turning back. I know this road I'm on's a one way. Mama always told me that it's gonna get better one day, but then that turned to years, and then you slowly start to lose faith. Faith in them, faith in me, faith in my abilities.